Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Luka's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my.
Luka Nation, we're back with your favorite segment, Coffee with Cage. And it's been an amazing week. Thank you guys for all the support, all the warm wishes. Let's get right into it, Cage. We got a lot of questions. Unless you have something that's top of mind, we have some serious questions to go through, and we don't have all the time in the world. You're on mute, big guy.
So top of the mind to me, the only thing that is December is always the worst month for me, and probably any other fat guy listening to this, because, it's the holidays. We just, it starts off with Halloween and kids have pounds of candy, and then you got Thanksgiving and it's just, there's more stuffing than you know what to do with. And then it's Christmas and everybody's drinking and getting drinks and bottles sent to me.
What are you drinking? What are you drinking? Still Diet Coke?
I got Diet Coke.
Any new developments in this?
I'm like, if I'm going to drink, I'm a bourbon guy. I drink a little bourbon if I'm drinking for the holidays. That's do a little bourbon, actually. Little scotch, a little single malt scotch. I like Lagavulin. If you guys, are looking for a not the most expensive scotch in the world, but it's a good one. Definitely a distinct flavor profile. But no, I'm just
on
saying,
the rocks, man, or just plain.
It depends what I'm in the mood for, but most of the time just neat. So most of the time no rocks, and that way you don't water it down. But no, I'm just saying I'm preparing December to gain like 30, 40 pounds, and then January, New Year's resolution, you take it back off. It's like the card market. You sell a little bit to buy a grail. I mean, I'm gonna gain some weight so I can lose it.
Cage, I'm going to start us off. I'm going off the cuff here. Right before this, Steve, one of our sporttrepreneur, I love this guy. He has my dream job. He's a meteorologist. But he posted a photo of him and his boys on a trip in Turkey. And I want to ask you first. I want Luka Nation to get a little bit of a peek inside Cage. What's a trip you took in your 18, 19, 20 years old that's super memorable?
I wish I had one to tell you about. I mean, it's not going to be anything fancy for you because you're sitting there right now, but I did go on spring break as a college sophomore when I was 19 years old to Cancun, which was a lot of fun. And, I say I have two kids, but, as far as I know, there may be 6 or 7 running around in Mexico. I have no idea. But, yeah, I mean, it is
I love it.
So little Los Cajos running around.
That could not have been answered better. Now, from Pack MVP, he asks, how do we, new and old school collectors, account for or eliminate the bias part or the hidden agenda part of this hobby? Every reputable or popular hobbyist has given an opinion or take on the hobby, likely has skin in the game. How do we decipher? How do we eliminate bias? How do we eliminate a hidden agenda? I like this question, and I wanted to start with it.
So, I mean, I'll take it two ways. One, you can eliminate the hidden agenda or the bias by understanding where the thing's coming from, right? In all walks of life, people are going to have their own agenda, their own bias. You go and talk to a stockbroker, and they're going to probably try to put you into a stock that's going to make them the most money. Depending upon who your stockbroker is. Everybody takes a little piece, a little cut, you name it. But what my second answer, and probably the better answer, would be is this: it's okay to have biases as long as you understand who's biased and why, and how you work that into your calculation of the hobby or your research of the hobby, right? So there are a million different ways of tackling this one, right? There are people who would tell you, when I started in this hobby, nobody cared about a graded card. Nobody could give a crap about a PSA, right? And there are people out there who would say you buy the card, not the holder. I will guarantee you that the vast majority of those people who say that, their collections are vintage that probably wouldn't grade well. So there's a bias there, right? That's just one example, right? I mean, people are in this hobby most of the time here. I mean, I call it a hobby because to me, it really is a hobby. Like, I will lose money on certain products if it's fun break for me and Ian. You know what I mean? So that to me is a hobby. But
which, by the way, guys, if you're listening, we might be going live a little bit later tonight to break some product. It's still TBD, but just keep that in mind. Every Friday, Cage breaks with the little man. So
Yeah, I try to. Yeah. So, but I mean, we do that. It's fun. But the vast majority of the influx of people who've come in this hobby, they're in this as a side hustle. They're in this to make money. You know what I mean? So it's okay as long as you understand that you know people are going to be biased. Um, you know, look, the question I could take it a million ways, right? I mean, one of the things we talked about, right, was manipulation of the market. There is more than that meets the eye. That LeBron auction that we talked about, right? Um, and there are people out there who set fake comps because they're holding a specific car. I mean, there's a lot of that in the hobby. The only thing that I can give as advice on it is, just open your eyes, right? Because you go into things with your eyes open, and you'll realize where stuff is coming from. I don't have like an end all be all like panacea, right? I don't have something that's gonna solve this, because it's never gonna be solved. There's always been garbage going on in the hobby, even back when I was a kid in the '80s. The same stuff was going on there, but
Guys, I don't know if you're familiar with like the online coaching hobby, or the online coaching business, but it's the same thing as this. There's people that are selling you snake oil. There's nothing behind it. I'll sell you this program that's going to get you 100,000 followers and grow your business, but there's nothing behind it. And then there's accomplished coaches who've done this quite often and put out content, are really just trying to educate. Gary has a quote. He says, "Pay attention who's giving the advice." That's what I would go with.
I like it. Well,
But
I'm gonna
Cage,
stop
you
taking my
talked
advice
about
from you.
good idea. That's a great idea. That's $1 million idea right
There
there.
we go. Woo!
But if you want $100 million idea, you might start listening.
That's
Now,
it.
Tariq Herzla and Cage, you've just picked up 2, maybe 3 huge vintage cards. So I want to ask you this: since performance is out of the question, what are the factors that impact the values of vintage?
This, by the way, this is a great question. That's a great question, right? So,
I knew you'd love it.
and it also applies to Pokemon, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things, right? This has been a crazy year of things going up and going down, and we're seeing the basketball market start to go back up again. People are buying things because they have their opinion on what's going to happen in the coming season. If you poll 10 people right now, 5 of them will tell you they're buying SGA because they're seeing publications about him. He's going to be handed the keys, and he's gonna, go off, and he's gonna have, so much more opportunity. And the other 5
King of the castle. King of the castle.
Yeah, the other 5 people are gonna tell you that they're selling him right now because his prices are too much, and that what they've seen out of him in the last 2 years it's not enough to show you that he's gonna be a superstar that could command those prices. But those conversations are going on. They're going on because there are games that are going to be played, and he's gonna play. That question will be answered, right? There are bets being made on both sides of that equation. He's going to play 70 whatever games they're going to play this season, and he's either going to perform or he's not. And the cards will follow based on those performances. That makes sense. Vintage is a little bit of a different story, but I hope you're not buying vintage of someone like SGA. So that's the real difference, right? So SGA is an unproven commodity. You don't have that in vintage. You know what you have. You're either buying something of a top 50 or top 100 player of all time, or you're not. Those guys are not unknown commodities. You're not making bets on them that are dependent upon performance. What drives their price is the scarcity, the population, the demand for them, whether or not they're still relevant. And more importantly, I have this theory, and I've said it a bunch of times on our show, but I have this theory that the rising tide lifts all ships, right? So there is a comparison between LeBron and Michael Jordan. There's a comparison between Kevin Durant and Hakeem Olajuwon, or it's not even a positional thing. It's where they rank in the overall, pantheon of the sport, right? And if you see a card of, I don't know, let's just throw anyone out there for you, right? Carmelo Anthony, great player, you name it, almost done with his career, and his rookie selling for $2,000. People like me and other collectors will look back and say, okay, Carmelo's a great guy. He's almost done. He's moving up the scoring board. But $2,000, I would much rather go back and buy a Julius Erving rookie who was like the best player of his generation, or I would buy a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or buy, one of these guys because the prices are too low. And that's what we saw happen with vintage, by the way. At least this is my belief, right? We saw modern go up, and people were faced with the opportunity to buy a Luka for $2,000 or a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for $2,000, right? Or Michael Jordan. Obviously, his rookie's expensive too, but there are modern cards selling for as much as a Michael Jordan PSA 10 rookie card. I think I just saw the price of a Luka RPA. I mean, I know it's an autograph different card, but I mean, you could buy like 2 or more Michael Jordan PSA 10 rookie cards for that.
Cage, Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant rookie, and Shaq vintage or not?
It depends, right? So I would say yes, right? I would say yes. So there are different definitions of it, right? I mean,
right.
Vintage is just something I would say that has age on it, right? So vintage, if you ask PSA, it's something that's before 1971, right? Wow. Modern is 1971 to 2016 right now, and they move it up by years. Ultra modern is 2018, and now that's going to move back a year, right? It's 2017 to now, but in January it'll be 2018. So if you want to use PSA's categories, and I think people do trust PSA, vintage, what they would call vintage, is something from 1971 and before. I happen to think that that's absurd. Anyone looking at me would call me vintage. And and I clearly,
because I had a second follow-up question now.
Yeah,
do you
please.
Also look, you say a rising tide lifts all boats. Do you also look at, hey, Michael Jordan's going up and the comp in football is Tom Brady, so his cards will soon follow? So Randy Moss cards or Jerry Rice cards have gone up. Randy Moss cards go up. Like, do you start looking like that by player as well?
Yeah, I think it's natural to do that. And a great example of that was when 2012 Prism basketball started to go up, and people were buying not just the rookies, people were buying the LeBron card in there, people were buying the Durant and those guys. The next thing that people looked at was the 2012 Prism football. And people were buying up the Tom Brady's and buying up the Drew Breeses and the Peyton Mannings and those guys. Now they didn't appreciate as much as the basketball did, but they were cards that you could easily get for a couple of bucks. That turned into significantly more money. And then it even carried over to the unlicensed 2012 Prism baseball. So yes, it's 100%, and it's not just by by product, but yeah, I mean, when people saw LeBron's cards starting to go up, they looked at Tom Brady and said, all right, I'm going to buy Tom Brady because if LeBron's worth this, Tom Brady's got to be worth this. And if Tom Brady's cards went up, then people started to look at who? Sidney Crosby cards. And when Sidney Crosby cards started to go up, people started to look at Venus Williams and Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic and whoever else was out there that no one else looked at, because you're right. It's not just a rising tide by sport. It's a rising tide of all of our collectibles.
Love it. Jay's Cardboard Dreams asks, LeBron's new $85 million deal sets up an opportunity to potentially play with Brownie. He has 3 questions, Cage, so I hope we could go a little bit quick here. Do you believe the NBA will get rid of the one-and-done rule before Brownie graduates high school?
Possibly. And I think that they have a nice out to do that in the next year or so, because schooling is going to be very, very different soon, right? Schooling is going to be odd. Who knows whether or not there will be the traditional school. I don't know what's going on with our COVID scenario here, but, I know more kids that are being homeschooled than I know kids who are actually in school. You also see, people like LaMelo Ball, who went and did that circuitous route. You're seeing the expansion of the G League. So yeah, can I see something like that happening? Look, the league obviously would bend over backwards for LeBron. And just to take it off to the side here, I remember watching as many documentaries as I could with my son during this, stay-at-home fun. And we watched the Jordan documentary, and we watched Bo Jackson, and we watched Allen Iverson and Vince Carter. But you know what my favorite?
Have you ever seen Walter Dupree? Have you ever seen Walter Dupree?
No.
He was like the Bo Jackson in high school. There's a great 30 for 30 on him as well.
That's cool. I'll watch it. But what I was saying was the one we watched.
Marcus Dupree. I apologize.
You sure it's not Jermaine Dupree? Do you want to take me off my thing again? Is there another Dupree person that he could maybe name? No? Okay, so we watched the one we watched the most that we had the most Jordan. And the Jordan one was great. Last Dance was great. Bo Jackson was great. But there was a Griffey one. And what my son loved the most was when Ken Griffey Jr. and his father were playing in the same outfield. And Jr. ran in front of Senior and caught a ball in front of him. The dad was lining up a fly ball, and Griffey Jr. ran in front of him and caught the ball and laughed at him, like, "Hey, old man, move out of the way." And then they went in the same game and went back-to-back home runs father and son. That's just it was cool stuff, and it's the kind of things you just don't see in sports ever. And I think LeBron's done pretty much everything. That would be a cool capper for him, right? I mean, look, does it really add to his legacy? Not so much. I remember Roger Clemens had a bunch of kids.
A Brownie LBJ Panini card would be kind of cool.
That would be sick, right? A father-son duo auto, right? But I mean, I remember Clemens' sons. Like Kobe Clemens. Like, well, I remember he went over to the Astros, and his kids were drafted in the organization and stuff while he was kind of still pitching. It's just one of those cool things that I think the NBA would love to have that as a story, and wouldn't really be that hard for them to, allow people to come in, not be one and done, to get him in there. Maybe LeBron stays an extra year. I mean, he's in amazing shape, right? He just had an MVP caliber season as 35, 36. So to Jay's point, I think the NBA would definitely be as flexible as they could be to make something like that happen. Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if LeBron plays till 45. 35, 36, 37, 38 isn't the same as it was before Cage. Do you agree? Like, no one was built like LeBron in the 1990s still playing.
Well, 50
barring
looks
a
very
major
different
injury
now than it did. Yeah. But I mean, look, Tom Brady's still playing. Not as good as everyone would have liked him to play.
Who's more athletic, Tom Brady or LeBron?
I don't know, man. I used to think basketball players were the most athletic people in the world, and then I saw Nate Robinson still on the campus. So,
what's cool? You actually answered question number 2. Do you think they would be successful? So I'll move to 3. Implication on college basketball. Does this push kids away from attending school and getting paid, or does this finally push the NCAA to properly pay athletes? I like that.
No, I think it's already happening, right? And yes, the NCAA would have to probably do something about it. And I think they kind of already are. There's already talk about them paying their student athletes. That's going to be real problematic because everyone's going to want to go to the big schools and everyone's going to want to go to the ones where, they make a name for themselves. And, people, there's going to probably be reshifting in the divisions again. And it's going to really be a pretty big nightmare. But look, the truth of the matter is we are a free market here. And I think that if somebody graduates high school and is an NBA team thinks they're going to be able that they'll be able to help them, go right ahead and draft that kid. If Doogie Howser can go to med school when he's 14 years old and come out and practice heart surgery as a teenager, then far be. Do you know who Doogie Howser is, by the way?
No.
Do you not know who Doogie Howser is?
No.
Dude, this is my favorite.
I was hoping you wouldn't.
These are my
I can't believe you paused to ask me that.
These are my favorite parts. So you have more homework. You have to look up Doogie Howser and Neil Patrick Harris. If you happen to be listening to this, because I know we have some celebrity listeners to Lucas Tigers and Bronzo Y. He doesn't mean it. I apologize for his offense to you, Doogie Howser. Dude, what is wrong with you?
Cage is quoting the guy from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah,
oh my land.
As a child, he was a child actor, and he was a doctor as a teenager. It was a great show from when I was a kid. But no, I mean, look,
was he better than the Real House? He probably wasn't as big of a jerk.
100% better. Look, did Kobe go straight from high school?
Yes, he did.
That worked out all right for him, right? I mean,
he wasn't so bad.
Yeah. So I mean. Listen, I don't think it's a problem at all. And yes, Jay, to answer the question, obviously the NCAA probably wouldn't take that sitting down. They would lose all of their top talents to the NBA. So I'm sure that they would have to do something to keep talent there.
Agreed. Since you have such an infatuation with me being in Mexico, you spent your spring break here. Plant Street Collectibles asks, what are your thoughts on Randy Arozarena? Is he still a buy after his recent incident in Mexico, which was dismissed? Do you 100%. Think he could recover the respect he might have lost from fans in the hobby?
So, I mean, it's a good question, only for me to point out the fact that I don't think this is like a non-issue. It's like a non-story. It was one of those things that probably wouldn't be covered here. It was a civil dispute, right, with the custody of his daughter and, stuff with it, between him and
do you think he's still a buy, though? Would you say he's still a buy? Let's say that incident, that's a non-issue. That incident's gone. Do you think he's a buy as a player for long term? You were early on him. You were really early, way before the postseason.
If the question is, does regaining the respect of people because of this incident? I don't think this incident has any impact at all. As far as whether I would be buying a Arozarena right now, his cards have run a lot.
Yeah.
But this is the baseball offseason. And I will tell you, he'll be one of those people. Look, his update card is like the card from the update set. Now, that's not saying that much because there just aren't that many good cards in it, but it is the card. I would be buying his raw update and trying to grade him and have him in hand for the beginning of the season. 100%.
You guys remember when we had KK Sports Cards on and we talked about the really high gem rate of Topps Chrome in baseball, specifically Soto? So I think we just stumbled onto a play here that Cage brought to you guys in early September, but I think it's actually valid now. I just looked up the price of Randy Arozarena. The Topps Chrome is $6.
Yep.
I think that's worth throwing in a bulk sub.
I have several of them in my last couple of bulk subs myself. So
yes, he does. Yes, he does.
He's definitely a player. He definitely is going to be on a team that's going to be good and relevant for quite some time. And you could buy the cards for a couple bucks. Why not?
Okay. Kellen, as you move up in price ranges from $100 cards to $1,000 cards, are there different expectations of how to conduct yourself or any tips for when you make a jump to a higher price range? I love this question.
Conduct yourself. Well, I act like a jerk off pretty much all the time, whether I'm dealing in $5 cards or $1,000 cards.
You have likability on your side somehow, Cage. You get away with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess. You know what it is? Because, look, I'm next to you all the time. So people are going to always love me. Because, look at you, man. No, so I mean, I get the question. Look, when you move up into higher price cards, you're dealing with people who are used to dealing in higher price cards. It's, what I would tell you is that as small as our community is in the rip and flip and the break rooms and the I'm going to grade cards and buy cards that are, eBay raw, ComC, you name it. It's really small when you get into people who are constantly dealing with 4, 5, and 6-figure cards. It is a really small world, and it does not take anything for your name to just be done, right? One transaction on one card, even, saying the wrong thing, like I'm going to ship something can you ship it to the wrong PayPal address or not flaking on payment or backing out of a deal or selling a card to somebody else after you had a deal in principle to somebody else. Those are the kind of things that can almost get overlooked when you're talking about a 10 or a 20 or a $50 card. Not that there's anything wrong with those cards. Everybody's got to be, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? But when you're...
Is your buying strategy similar or the same? Do you change how you operate, though? Or should you have the same principles throughout? Really, it shouldn't matter the amount. It should matter your principles and criteria, I think is what he's saying.
I just mean it doesn't make a difference. When you're in this hobby, you have to be yourself and you have to behave the way that you would want somebody to behave towards you, right? And that doesn't change if it's a $5, $10, $50 card. The only thing that I'm trying to say here is that there's no faster way than to never be able to transact cards than to try to be a fool, no matter what.
Yeah, but I think what this guy's asking is that from one side, yes, but he's also asking, as you move up to bigger stocks, bigger prices, more valuable assets, is it the same principles that you're buying? For example, you're buying $100 PSA 10 like Rui Hachimura versus buying like a LeBron Topps Chrome. Are you still looking at it and assessing that purchase the same way as the Rui, or are there different criteria?
Yeah, so I will tell you that I think I understand what you're asking. Let's just use my own collection. I still evaluate the stuff the same way, but my own goal when I'm moving up into higher dollar cards, I'm not looking for those to be quick flips, and I'm not looking for those to be 5x on my money, right? I'm looking for those to be the portion of Andrew's pie chart analysis that is less risk. I'm going to take more risk in those low value cards, the stuff that I buy for a couple of dollars and the stuff that I will grade and try to resell. And if I make enough money where, I want to use a 10% or 20% of my portfolio to buy a blue chip, a higher end card, the way I look at that is I'm almost taking that money off of the risky side of the pie chart. You know what I mean? And if I buy a card for $5,000, I don't expect it to turn into a $15,000 or $20,000 card in 3 months, because those are few and far between. Does it happen? Sure. Has it happened? 100%.
Are you familiar with a theory called parking, like parking your money?
Yeah. definitely.
Is that something similar when you're buying, like a $20,000-$30,000 card, like especially when it's vintage? You know that you can your money's safe there. You could more than likely get 90% of the value out the next day.
Yeah.
It's
the same type of an asset, right? I mean, we talk about it with stocks, right? I mean, it's the same kind of deal, right? You put it in a stock that is pretty stable with hope for some upside and no real downside. But it's like anything else, right? It's a risk portfolio. You're managing that risk. You're also limiting the amount of upside you potentially will get with the money. And in exchange for that, you're getting a pretty much guarantee that the downside's not there too, right? So yes, it is parking your money to some extent.
I like this question because for me, it was always really difficult I could buy a Trey base, a Trey silver, a Luka base, a Luka silver. I understand those investments, but it's always been difficult for me to wrap my head around, 35,000 for a Luka blue PSA 10.
Right.
And that's moving up in price range, right? Again?
Yes. So
but that is a sound investment.
I'm putting that in a different bucket, right? So I have never done that, right? And I may think about doing it also but to me, if I'm taking, let's use your $35,000, right? If I'm taking $35,000 of Luka, Trey, Devontae Graham, SGA, base and silvers off the table, that's one bucket of real, let's call it like low end prospecting cards, right? Let's call it, I mean, they're not low end, but you understand what I'm saying. It's 3-figure to 4-figure cards that have, I would consider a higher risk portfolio, right? So they're lower dollar, but higher risk, all right? Because if Trey doesn't score 40 points a game, his cards are probably going to come down because that's already baked into his price. If the Hawks aren't better, moving towards being actually a playoff team, and he doesn't fill the stat sheet, there's risk there. There's real downside risk there, right? So I moved across the pie chart and down to, let's take that $35,000 you sold of those guys and put it into a Jerry Rice PSA 10 rookie card. And this kind of dovetails with the question we got before about how what's gonna impact their performance, right? So Jerry Rice is not going out there and breaking his leg this year. He's also not going out there and scoring 19 touchdowns. So the risk portfolio is less there. The risk is less to the value of that card. So I've now moved to the other side of the pie chart. I'm now in 5-figure cards, but I've moved down the risk to, I'm sacrificing some upward potential, some upward mobility, some upward gains, but I know this card is not going to be losing 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 or 40% of the value, some minimal loss potential. The top here, what you're talking about, another side of this chart, is moving out of those 3-figure cards into a 5-figure card, but with a higher risk attached to it. So if you're taking $35,000 of Luka prisms, silvers, and base, and buying a $35,000 Luka card or Trey card, yes, you've moved over into a higher value card, but that's a high value, high risk card. Because if Luka doesn't turn into an MVP candidate this year, that $35,000 card could become a $15,000 card, which is still a great card, but you've lost, more than half the value of it now. So there is, that's not parking your money into a card that has the same risk portfolio as the ones you're selling. So, I mean, that's you have to be a little more careful with that, right? So I'm fine with that. And it depends on where you want to put your money. Some people would tell you that there's more upside to a $35,000 Luka because there's so few of them, and there's going to be more people who want to buy them rather than buying the prisms and the silvers, and that's true.
And if he does win MVP, or if he does exceed expectations, and if they do go to the finals, that might be in the hype of it all, 70,000. Okay,
yeah,
guys,
100%.
That little 3-4 minute segment, I recommend you kind of go back, and that was an amazing analysis, a breakdown of how to think about moving within the hobby, moving within
it doesn't have
cards.
to be Luka or Trey. We just use those as an example. But yeah, I mean,
well, Devontae, you brought up a lot of good examples there, Cage.
So that's, I mean, really, guys, this is it. You almost have to have a conversation with yourself, right? You almost have to say, what's my portfolio? What am I investing? And what kind of risk am I willing to take with what percentage of that portfolio? Right? It's just like your Kobe mutual fund analysis, the pie chart that we have up on our page. If you're going to put $10,000 into cards and you want to swing for a home run and put 20% in high risk because you are a Darius Baisley believer, go for it. But realize that 2,000, if Baisley does not do anything this year, could be $500 in a week. That's high risk.
I also wouldn't give up your assets, even if they're $200-300 for speculations if they're in the thousands. Like I wouldn't give up a prism base tray for a blue Darius Baisley. Like those.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me. Let's keep going.
Depends on how much risk. Depends how much risk
That's
you want
right.
to take. It's the same thing. But go ahead. What do you got?
Drake. I keep hearing that we are in the infancy of the hobby explosion, but then I also hear that we will only have this window to buy, sell, profit for the next 2-3 years, and then it will go back to just being a hobby. Other than a financial collapse, what would cause this boom to stop? For example, in 5 years, if I bought a 03 LeBron Topps Chrome today for $10K, is it more likely to be a $20K plus card or more likely to be a $5K or less card? Great question, Drake. Drake always asks really thoughtful questions, to be quite honest.
This guy knows what he's doing. He knows the questions to ask. And you know what's funny? I love that our questions can really be piggybacked on other ones, right? And the question, it points out.
You don't think that has anything to do with the
hosting?
You think
maybe it does. I don't know.
I'm using a randomizer.
Listen, if you're trying to get a compliment out of me, no way. Not with those pictures of yourself you post. So guys, if you're listening to this and you have not checked out the I Am Andrew Goldberg, his personal Instagram account, you got to go check it out. Because this guy, let me tell you something. When he wakes up, he looks out at the ocean, he posts a picture of himself in the morning, and the ladies just come out from behind the woodwork, man. I don't know where they come and they like it.
If they went to my feed, they would see a few selfies with a ton of self-help, motivational. But I don't even like those two words because it's stuff that I'm trying to work on myself. Like I'm going through this stuff myself and I work hard on myself. And those are reminders to me to like, yo, you don't just be a talker, be a doer. So if you really must know and come on my feed.
I like it. So I'm go check out the feed. He is a doer. And what he's
by the way,
done
if you guys are content creators, I recommend that because that made things a lot easier when I started posting more for me than for others.
There you go. But so he is such a doer and such a self-helper that he helped me here by layering questions that were relevant on top of each other. And Drake's question, what it's a perfect example of is the first question you asked, which was about the bias in there, right? So you told me that there are some people out there who are telling you this, we're in the infancy of the hobby. And those are people who probably want the hobby to stay around for a long time because maybe they're one of the people who are selling some supplies. Maybe they're one of the people who, started a subgroup. Maybe they're me who want this podcast to last more than 6 months. Maybe
they opened a retail store and took a 10-year lease.
Maybe they like coffee and cards at the same time. Who knows, right? Maybe they are, who knows what the story is. But keep in mind where that's coming from. Obviously, there are people in the hobby who are getting income from the hobby who want it to not die next year. And then maybe the people who are telling you that it's only going to last for another year or 2 or 3 are trying to cause panic in you and other people. This way they can scoop in and buy your cards from you when you're thinking, oh shit, I better get out while the going is good and sell my blue chip assets now before there is a bubble that bursts. So what could happen, right? So I consider myself not uniquely situated to answer this, but in a very good position to answer this, that a lot of people listening to this will not have the benefit of, and that is age. That is, it's the fact that I'm an old man. And there is, there's a saying, right? It's what do I say? Youth is wasted on the young.
On the young. I love that saying.
And experience.
I think about that a lot.
Experience might be wasted on the old, right? So here's the fun part of it, right? If I knew now what I know then, right? I saw the last come up of sports cards in the 80s. I mean, I was in my prime baseball card collecting, age. The wood border 87 tops that they recently did a throwback on, which was that was like the first set that I completed myself, collated out of packs and put all 792 cards together. So I was there for the expansion in 89 and 90 and saw the upper deck come into the market, score. I saw, Flair, Donruss, you name it. But then in the 90s when, Bowman and just the tops go from one product to 50 and a release that seemed like it was coming out every week, and everybody getting to the hobby, and Beckett becoming a huge thing. Beckett magazine. I had Beckett, the first Beckett ever, with Michael Jordan on the cover of it. Thought that was a cool collectible. But you see the expansion, and what winds up happening is the supply outpaces the demand. And the demand of it, the people, the you, the me, the people listening to this, the people buying, it's almost impossible to keep up with the amount of supply that gets dumped on the hobby. And am I nervous about it? I would say no, because the amount of people coming into this now is amazing. And we've talked about the difference between just the collectors who were out there and the institutional money that's coming into this now, buying cards, buying, creating mutual funds, all that other fun stuff that's coming to the hobby. But the other thing that's really different now is the world is smaller. That's going to sound weird, right? But in the 80s, when I was a child and I got an assignment, I had to go to the library and look it up because I couldn't pull my phone out of my pocket and Google it. You know what I mean? But back then, you wanted to trade cards, you had to trade on your street. You had to wait for the monthly card show at the church. Now that's not the case. Now it is an instant world where buying and selling of products are at your fingertips 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have eBay as a platform to buy and sell. Card prices don't come out monthly where you open up a magazine and see a black arrow that the card price has gone up, or a black arrow pointing down if that card value went down from last month's guide, right? Go ahead.
Two questions on that, because this is amazing, guys. Where are you going to get this? This is literally a history, decade by decade.
We have to be careful, though, right? Because Panini is pumping out products like you wouldn't believe, right? So that's the only part of it that scares me, right? Topps has 1 million products. I mean, there are still 2019 basketball products coming out. We will be playing.
So that was my question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You talk about supply and demand, right? When supply is just so much higher than demand can't keep up.
Yep.
Is that like a cliff where it literally falls off a cliff? And my question is, was there a day where you just knew cards were done? Or is it gradual in that it just slowly fades?
It's gradual. There is no fall off a cliff. But you know what happens is that the supply floods into the market so much, there will always be collectors. In the late 90s, there were still people buying cards. But there was not as many people buying cards as there were in the early 90s. And that's because the cards, it was like card overkill, right? And it's a shame, too, because think of some of the great rookies in the late 90s. I mean, imagine collecting in 96 and actually being fully invested in, a Kobe, right? So, the last biggie was 2003 when LeBron came out. People went back into hobby. And that's what happened now with basketball and stuff. But that, unless there is a constant flow of that, it kind of does die down. And what I will tell you, just to answer your question, the one thing that I hope is different this time is that the companies involved need to exercise some restraint, some fiscal responsibility to maintain something long term. It's kind of like being penny wise and pound foolish. Another fun saying by the old man here talking to you, right?
Yep.
If Panini wants, they can print as much as they want for the next 18 months, and they'll sell everything they pump out. But there will be fatigue. That's what will happen. There'll be consumer fatigue, and people will stop buying every single one of these things, right? I'll bet it already starts to happen, right? I'll come back to that in a second. The other way.
No, it's a great point. It's basically maximizing short-term profit, right? Is what you're saying.
Yeah. So
versus
a
long-term outlook.
Maybe they put out 12 releases. They keep people engaged. They keep people entertained. They still sell it, but they're able to put out 12 releases a year for the next decade instead of 18 releases a year for the next 2 years, and then no one's buying their shit, right? So it's about their responsibility as the people flooding the market. And I'll tell you,
if that happens though, does that mean the hobby has gone away though? If no one's buying the new Panini shit?
No, but it means obviously that it's not as rampant as it is now. And listen, you'll see it already, right? I mean, you saw with the Prism football. I mean, it happened to be the week after Joe Burrow got hurt, but the Prism football boxes that went on, or what was it? Was it Optic first off the line or Prism first off the line?
No, it was Prism first off the line.
Auction, Prism. I mean, and those boxes, if you looked at like the chat rooms and stuff, people are like, oh, those are not going to get down into 3 figures. Those will be, look at last year's prices. Those are going to be $1,250 or $1,300 to get end at, and they got down to just under 1,000, 9 and change.
Do you want to talk about the damage to those boxes here, or should we leave that?
We can, but I mean, look, certain people are posting pictures. Our friend Brownie posted a picture of the fact that those cards were damaged, in the box, which is a shame. And look, it makes me feel. I opened the box of Hoops Premium with Ian. The set that was available that we mentioned as one of our plays this week, and it's supposed to be a 300 card set, and mine had 297 cards in it. 3 cards are missing, and one missing was Zion. So I felt like shit until I saw, Bro Namath post this picture of the box he spent $1,000 on, and the cards are rolled. They look like they went through a shredder before they were put into packs. So, I guess everything is relative. No, but
is that a Panini exclusive thing, or have you had those issues with Topps?
No, it's everything, but that looks pretty bad. That looks like a real quality control kind of thing. And it just seems to be just on the first of the lines, because I don't see that kind of stuff coming out of the retail blasters or anything like that. So obviously there was some sort of issue with first off the line, before they got into the boxes or something. This there's a quality control issue there, because it's not just his box. I've seen many boxes with the same scenario. But listen, I want to put the cherry on top of the sundae on this, because Drake, please. I mean, you're not the only one with this question. People are investing a lot of money in this as an asset. I believe we are in its infancy. I don't think that there is ever going to be a time this time around where we fall off a cliff, where we have the same thing happen. People are too in tune with it, right? And you may see certain cards fall, but the overall market not, right? Money will flow. And I think that's going to be the response to Panini. When they release a product. So, you know what I'm watching? And I made fun of it the other day, but I'm watching this 1-in-1 release that just came out. It's a new thing. It's got no longevity. It's got no tail. It's not something that was out last year.
Panini 1-in-1.
Yes, it's a basketball product where the boxes are like $500 a box. You get 2 cards. You get a base card and a relic auto, patch auto. And obviously there's a market for it now, because people are looking to break whatever basketball Panini comes out with. But if I had to guess, I would guess that the long-term value of a product like that is not going to be great. I think you're going to start to see it'll be high when it releases, and then you're going to start to see the stuff kind of fall like this, because it's yet another RPA. It's like the 8th RPA rookie patch auto of every one of these guys, right? And if you're going to have your money into a Zion RPA, do you need the 11th different one this year of that? So, and my hope is that Panini is also paying attention to that the same way that I am, or more, and they realize, shit, that's not a product we need to bring back next year.
Do you think it has anything to do with also like the fact that some of these products come out during season? This is a product that's 6 months after season, 4 months after season, after we saw that Zion looked horrible and the Pelicans looked horrible in the bubble. Does that have anything to do with it?
It does, but I think, listen, Panini is smart. They see what's going on in the hobby. I mean, I live on a block with 10 different houses. I think 6 of them are professional breakers. They're all online breaking. Obviously, that's a joke, guys. So no, there's no breakers on my block. There's firemen. But you understand the point, right? The point being, Panini can put out shit in a box, number it 5 out of 5, and say, Zion, use the toilet next to this, and breakers will break it for you, and people will buy it. That's what's going on right now. You can put a turd in a box and call it Panini, and it will sell, because right now the demand for the products is so high that it doesn't even make a difference. Now, at some point in time, that demand will wane, because, like I said, there'll be some fatigue. And look, I don't know how many times we're able to say flight to quality. Buy the right stuff, right? Flawless is game-used relics, national treasures, your Prism flagship and your Optic and these things. They have longevity, right? They have track record. It's the same thing you do with the stock.
5K. So does LeBron go to 5K more likely, or 20K plus?
And so so I didn't answer that part of it. Keep in mind, what I just told you was there was in 1980s, the thing went up and then it went down and the whole deal. The LeBron card, it's akin to your Michael Jordan rookie card. It's akin to your Mantle card. It's akin to, an iconic card. And there are other ones, Brady, you name it, the GOATs, the true chips. Will their card value go up and down? Sure. Over time, those cards are all going to go up, because I don't know who it is now. Maybe it's Brownie, or maybe it's Michael Jordan's grandson. But in 2032, there'll be another hot prospect, another Luka, another guy, and maybe it's not Panini, maybe it's a company that hasn't even come out yet, and there'll be another boom of this stuff, and people will go back and make sure that LeBron card is still one of the blue chip, iconic investments of all time. There are pieces where you could put your money where it's probably not going to double, triple, quadruple over the next 6 months, like a Darius Bazley could if he comes out and has a monster start to the season. But LeBron is about as safe as where you can put your money.
I have a question for Cage. Do you have a sneaky Kobe cards? What's up, Kobe? Do you have a sneaky play like you did with Pokemon a few years ago? Is there anything that people are overlooking? Marvel, Harry Potter, tennis, UFC?
Right. So you already know my thought on tennis, right? And I'm a little scared to give this play, right?
Dude,
I mean,
guys,
I love
Cage is a savage tennis player, by the way.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. That
court coverage is on point.
We should see some. I only play doubles, and it better be like a champion single player as my teammate, so he can cover the whole court for me because I'm not getting anything. So it's a cool card, pal. So I'm hesitant to say it right because the question begs this: everybody's looking for the next big thing, right? We've seen the last 18 months play out like that, right? It was modern basketball, it was Zion. And then everybody was looking at modern basketball and said, you know what, where's the next thing that's going to explode? Oh, go to vintage basketball. And then it was Project 2020. And then it was go buy vintage football. There were 137 articles about it and buy vintage football. And then it went from vintage football to Pokemon. And our pal Lamine James had, the Grim Reaper showing up at the door of each one of those as the prices went up and then went down, right? So I don't want the hobby to become everybody looking for that next diamond in the rough, and it gets blown up and then it pops and drops, right? Because that what you should be looking at here is something that's got some more sustainable growth, right? If I were telling you what cards I think could have some longevity going forward, or some what's the hidden gem. UFC is a nice area. I think wrestling is probably better. I don't think people have really talked about wrestling cards. We had David Peck on in one of our first guests, so we talked about it. That market for wrestling and sports entertainment it's really crazy. And it's got such a rabid fan base. And it has something that like the UFC doesn't. UFC started in 1993, right? And if you guys haven't listened to it, Andrew was on a podcast. Andrew, what was the name of it where you were a guest?
I think it was Third Street something. I'll find the name real quick.
You'll find it. So you'll drop it for us. And the guy talked about UFC. And it's funny because, I was listening to it. And he's like, oh, the UFC was real raw when it started. I watched UFC #1. There was a guy with one glove. And I'm at my desk listening to this. And I go, Art Jimerson. I remember that guy. He fought against Hoist Gracie in UFC 1. But you know what?
The card table.
The card table. So I'm the only lunatic
with
that
THA card
right?
table. Sorry,
people Hoist Gracie card table, right? So take a look at that and listen if you haven't yet. Andrew was a guest on that podcast, and he was talking about UFC stuff and the whole deal. But what I already realized as I was listening to that was, while UFC has some ability, the UFC does not have the Ric Flair. They do not have the Hulk Hogan, the Andre the Giant, the Randy Macho Man Savage, these guys who are Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Undertaker. That is what will grow a collection. Not to mention the current guys, the current women, the Becky Lynches, the Ronda Rouseys, if you want to go that route. The Charlotte Flair. And I think Charlotte Flair just signed with Gary's, agency, right? I mean, so.
But that's a great take, guys. Like, if you think about it, the people that buy the cards are the ones that watch the performer in their youth. It's not like I like McGregor, I'm buying McGregor's card now. Correct. Sure, that's a little bit, but I grew up watching McGregor, and in 30 years, I buy his card for like a little bit of the nostalgic feel. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it is. But so for wrestling, why I like wrestling, and keep in mind, guys, you want to talk about the bias, I do not have a wrestling card, right? I had two and I sold them both, right? So I'm not telling you this. This is something I'm going to look into myself. So it's, hey, hot off the press, right out of the mind of Cage, right? It has all of the aspects of something that could explode. It's got a current market base now. It's got cards now. It's got it's got legends that you can buy. It's got products that mix legends and current guys in. It's got an awesome women's division, which the UFC has when Ronda Rousey was there, it was great. Misha Tate, amazing people's champ, I called her. Great, but they just don't have it now, and they don't have headliners now. They just don't. That's the problem with UFC. But you know what UFC does have? And here's another little Luka Nation nugget for you. UFC cards are a sneaky play because Topps has been doing them since 2009. They called it round 1, 2009, and then there was round 2, the second release in 2009. And that was just a crazy, awesome set with a bunch of guys in it. But next year, Panini has the license.
12-year.
Panini has the contract. Panini is taking over UFC next year. I read this, so that's going to breathe some life into it. I think Panini's going to be able to do some cool stuff with it, and Panini's going to. People love Panini. And
do you think they're going to run their cards through a shredder as well?
I hope not. I hope not for UFC, but I'd be curious to see what they do. I mean, there's so much stuff we talked about this that they could do with the product. There have been cage relics. The only time that was in 2010. I don't even call it round 4. Main Event was the name of the product. 2010. It had cage relics in it, and they really didn't do a cool job with it. But stuff like that. I mean, like pieces of the glove and cool things. Like Panini could really do a good job with it if they wanted to. And a lot of people don't realize that Topps is losing that to Panini next year. So, it was a great question. I think right now I'd look more at wrestling products just because the pop of some of the old stuff is so low.
WWE does a great job promoting their old guys as well. Like they still bring The Rock back, for example. They keep that alive in a lot of ways. And that's huge because really sports cards are a marketing business.
Well, Andrew, name for me 5 all-time great wrestlers.
WWE or UFC?
Wrestlers.
WWE. Hogan, Ric Flair, The Undertaker.
The Rock, you just said.
Yep.
Right?
What's that guy? Triple H. Triple H. I like Triple H. John Cena's not great.
Yeah.
John Cena's hella corny, man. I got to be honest with you.
But look what you just did. You named 5. You named the Mount Rushmore in a second. There's 7. There's extra.
I like that Brazilian woman. Oh, she's UFC. I forget. My bad.
So but here's what's funny. Give me the 5 Mount Rushmore UFCs. Give me the Undertaker and the Stone Cold UFC. Go.
I like why is the guy that always did all the drugs and got DUIs?
So you don't even have to answer.
Bones Jones. Bones Jones.
You just answered it. You rattled off 5 WWE guys in a second. And for your first name of UFC, you said, who's that guy again? But that is exactly my point. And you talk about John Jones, who is pound for pound one of the greatest that ever did it. And yes, he's had some run-ins.
And that French guy,
DWI.
Jean-Pierre Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Pierre Claude. So you're talking about Georges St. Pierre, who's not French, he's Canadian, but I guess you can consider him French, right? He's French Canadian.
Does he go by George or George?
And then, of course, there's Anderson Spider Silva and, BJ Penn and Matt Hughes and the Brazilian woman you're talking about. Could be a couple, but, it could be.
She beat up Ronda. Oh, no, Holly Holm beat up Ronda.
Well, so did she. You're probably talking about Amanda Leoa. You're probably talking about the Lioness. But, Cyborg was also a fighter. Gina Carano, she's in The Mandalorian now. She was not in the UFC, but she was an MMA fighter before the UFC had a women's division.
Let's move it. I want to say this about women's fighting, and let's move it you want to say something? You want to take? No, I was going to say.
But the point there is wrestling has all of the makings of something that could be sustainable and doesn't have the demand yet, and it hasn't been overproduced. Right, so wrestling could be something good. Just to answer the question.
I love that the women's what's it called? The women's MMA fighters. It feels like like they're fighting for their lives. Like they fought so hard to get there, and they don't like. I love that. I love how hungry the women's fights are. I don't know if that makes sense, Cage, but it's like they don't. I don't know. I'm not making sense, but I'm going to move to the next question. Okay, Call Star.
Listen, Amanda Nunes. If you haven't watched any women's fights, well, Amanda Nunes, who's the champ, and has cleared out the whole division, beat everybody who was in there. She's an amazing fighter, but she's not a household name. No one knows who she is. You know what I mean? And you need that for UFC. You need that for the cards to maintain a real broad demand level. So, my only problem with UFC.
Call Star. Will Yu-Gi-Oh cards ever explode the way Pokemon cards have?
Yeah, so I love the question, but it's exactly the same answer I gave before. Everybody's looking for the next thing to explode. Yu-Gi-Oh has already gone up, and I've seen Dragon Ball Z go up, and people talk about the TCG stuff for Harry Potter cards. They're buying Harry Potter cards. Really, what scares me about those, and it applies to Pokemon for me. You know, I'm gonna always harken back if I can make if I can make T-shirts for our podcast and allow it to be, you know, sayings from our guests, right? Like we had Lefko, who is doing that Surface trade card show on the 12th. If you guys haven't looked into that, take a look at that. But, you know, he said, that's my guy. And Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson is my guy. That's one saying. I loved Buster's saying of buy what you love, right? Buy what you love. Don't buy what you think may potentially turn into something if A, B, C, D, and E dominoes fall in the right way, right? So, you know, Dragon Ball Z could become the greatest thing since Pokemon if there is a fan base that loves it and is willing to buy it, right? But if you're not in that fan base, you know, you don't have a kid who's telling you, let's watch Dragon Ball Z, you name it, it's a tougher sell, right? I know you don't, buddy, but did a Pokemon new series come out today? Yeah, Pokemon Journeys, right? So we're watching Pokemon like crazy. There is an attachment there, right? And that's why we have no problem putting our money into Pokemon. If you weren't a Harry Potter person, you didn't love the Potter books and Potter movies and that kind of stuff, it's hard for me to tell you go and invest your money now in the Potter cards TCG because you're not buying what you love. You're buying what you hope somebody else might love. And that's a very different thing, right? And it still might work out for you, trust me, because there are plenty of people out there who love Potter. But I think
it's a framework, right? It's a philosophy. It might work out short term, but long term, it's not the play. And I'll tell you guys, like quite a few people, bro, Namath, Jeremy Padawer, they were saying buy Pokemon. Not in the sense like they were pushing it, but they were saying Pokemon is going to explode. It has this huge fan base. But I wasn't a fan. And Cage, you know this. I didn't buy a single Pokemon card. It just wasn't me.
I tried. I tried, but you're right.
You miss out on profit, but you got to put your head on the pillow and sleep comfortably. I think it's a big deal, Cage.
No, but you also didn't buy in halfway through the run up where you know, Pikachu Yellow Cheeks was $6,500 or $7,000 or $6,000 and say I got to get in now because I don't miss the boat. And now the card is worth half of what it was because, you know, it hit its peak and it's come down. I think it's still going to go back up. But you also didn't, you know, you didn't jump in and, you know, you're not regretting jumping in at the wrong time. You know what I mean? Why Jeremy was able to make the money he did on it is because he has a business relationship with Pokemon. He knows the company. He knows the people behind it. He knows the value of it. And he had that knowledge base to say, this is huge. I know how big Pokemon is, so I'm willing to put my money into Pokemon because I know the audience. I know how it's going to grow. I don't have that for, I mean, I love the UFC, but I don't have that for, and the flip side to it is I know the UFC as well as a lot of people. You know, I've watched a lot of it. I watched UFC 1. I watched almost every pay-per-view that they've had. I had that UFC, you know, membership, and I'm not buying it. I love the UFC, but I'm not buying it because even though I love the UFC, I don't love the prospects for the cards. Not right now, at least. So.
I love it. Question from Sammy. I got to be honest. I love that we have our audiences in the armed forces. I think it's kind of cool. Don't you think, Cage?
Yeah, 100%. And listen, it's a great thing. Comment on there. If you're military active or a veteran or someone who served, let us know. Send us a message.
Yep.
You know, send us a message.
I don't know if it does this for you, but it always puts things in perspective for me. Like here we are 100%. Talking about 2020, and like there's guys that are fighting for our country and have sacrificed their time, their whatever for us to be a free nation. I think it's super cool.
If you're on a base now or deployed, you know, I would love to help you guys. I mean, we're doing something with Manny Simone, who's got a great TikTok channel, and he's starting to do some content also with other Pokemon artists and content creators. You know, I'm going to send him out a bunch of Pokemon cards just from boxes that I've opened myself. And, you know, he's going to do like a Christmas giveaway, you know, 12 days of Christmas, give cards to people, you know, kids who can't find cards because everybody's going to Target and buying them all up to break them online. So go ahead and have some of my cards. I get some hollows, some foils, some all kinds of stuff. If you're active military, you're somewhere on a base or something like that, I'll send you packs. I'll go to my LCS and buy some boxes and I'll send them out to you, send them out to the base. You know, I'd love to get you guys into the cards and you know, have you listen to the podcast. So if you're
not an
out
empty
there,
promise. That's not an empty promise. Take them up.
Do it. So send us a message.
Sammy asks, what cards have the potential to have the biggest upside this season?
So this season being like this basketball season?
I think it's implied. I think it's implied because of the timing.
So this is going to sound ridiculous because it's the most obvious answer, but the cards that have the most potential for upside this season are actually Zion cards. It's actually a Zion.
No.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh
100%.
my God.
100%. Because everybody's on him.
I guess you're right.
But if he comes out and has, so I'm not saying this is going to happen, and it's definitely not where I'm putting my money. But to answer your question, do I see anybody else who has the potential to multiply the way that Zion does? The answer is no, right? Because I mean, look at it, right? We saw last year when Giannis had that regular season where he was going to be the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year, and his Prism base rookie card go to $7,000, right? So how much are Zion PSA 10s now?
675.
Yeah, 600. I saw him go down to 500, during this offseason, right? So 675. If he goes out there and is in the MVP discussion, I know that's a big if, but he goes out there in the MVP. His team is playoff bound. They should have made the playoffs last year. They were close to the playoffs. His team is playoff bound. They're, middle of the road, middle of the pack. They're winning games. And he's going out there and he's scoring 25 points a game and putting up 10 rebounds a game. And also, looks healthy, looks like he's running the offense and he's doing that kind of stuff. That card's $2,000. I'm not saying any of this is going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I'm personally not betting on it. But if your question is what card has the potential for the biggest upside this season, it's him. Because everybody's, it's everybody's waiting for it to explode. Everybody's buying Tesla, waiting for the one time where their earnings say they actually made money and that they can produce the amount of cards that everybody's expecting them to produce, right? They've never really had it. But when it does, when they have that earnings that come out and they say, we didn't lose as much money as we thought we were going to lose, what happens to the stock? It's pressurized, right? It goes like crazy. And then you have FOMO and you have people buying in because they're like, shit, I missed Tesla. I should have bought it. And you get the same thing. And if Zion, the only thing right now holding Zion back are people like me saying that he's fat and he's a lard ass, which is
I'll tell you
from me because I'm a fatty.
When I first I first read this question, I instantly thought, and I heard you say Zion, I thought no. But when you really read the question, it's which card has the highest upside, right?
Upside, 100%.
You're absolutely right, because if he does put together what you just described as a season, yeah, that's a $2,000 base Prism.
Everybody's going to want to be in on him, and you're going to have that meteoric explosion of his value because everybody's going to want to say, I have a Zion card. Even the people like me who I think I have a base 10 and maybe a green 10 that Ian bought, I think we have a silver 9 that we pulled out of a pack. I don't have a huge Zion collection, but even someone like me, if he's doing that, I'm going to want a Zion piece in my collection. I'll have to chase a Zion that I didn't buy right now for $675. Will I pay $1,500?
That green pulsar that is at PSA. Do you think that goes over to Nat Turner now in that deal? That's his. Should we let Ian know that Nat Turner now has his green pulsar?
Yeah, let him know. Nat Turner has a green pulsar. So guys, just a quick aside on the green pulsar because Andrew makes jokes about it all the time. Ian pulled a green pulsar Zion that was really off-centered out of 25 out of a blaster. And, because I knew it wasn't going to grade well, I didn't send it into PSA and we sold it. We sold it to somebody who was making a Zion rainbow and got very good money for it. But he continues to ask me when that card is coming back from PSA because he wants it for himself.
I'm only mimicking Ian asking for that card to come back from PSA. And guys, we'll do a short segment where Cage just talks about how that happened because that was at a show.
It's a great story.
It's a great story. We'll save it for another time.
Yep, go ahead. So what else we got?
Okay, Yamwax. Which card release, parallel, or insert most closely matches your personalities?
Wow. Which card release or insert matches my personalities? So is that for both of us? Or is he saying I have multiple personalities? Do you have one for you?
I'm gonna go zebra.
Who do you have?
I'm gonna go
zebra.
Zebra. Okay. I love the paradox and duality of life. I love like the black and white. I love yin yang. And I think my personality is that in a lot of ways. Like I think I have this heady, spiritual kind of like karmic, like I believe in people. I love people, but I also have this other side of me that's super competitive, super aggressive. Like I love to fight. So I think the zebra stripe.
Okay, so for me, great question, man. I could probably go 5,000 ways with this, right? But I'm going to go one where I remember collecting the card. I remember pulling the card myself. In 1993-94, Fleer Ultra has a card that I think describes me. It's called the Power in the Key. That's me. I'm Power in the Key. I was always a big guy. I always had to, when I played basketball, I was always, in the key, always in the post, always doing my, always had to be down there for that. But take a look at these cards, guys, if you can, right? So my personality, forget about a zebra. These cards are weird. They're a little offbeat, right? They're really susceptible to being chipped around the edges. They're difficult to find in mint condition, very difficult. PSA 10s are almost impossible. But it's a cool set. It's got all the big names. Michael Jordan has one. If anybody has a PSA 10 Michael Jordan Power in the Key, show me.
I'm looking at it now. It's a pretty cool card. It has like it's like brown colored. It has the key, the 3-point line, the free throw line, everything, and he's kind of posting up.
Yeah, Jordan's in it. So it's got a lot of colors. It's one of those first like foil ones, and the edges are just impossible to do. And if you get a good picture of it, it's like purple and red and yellow, Power in the Key. It's a really cool like insert card. And it's I don't know, just that phrase. I'm not a scoring king. That was never me. That's you, Andrew. I was a guy who used all 6 of his fouls. I was Power in the Key, no problem. But that's
really
it. And also, it's a cool. Listen, we should do a thing on it about like different inserts and sets and stuff, over time, because there are so many cool cards that people don't even know about. I'd love for you to look at that. Look at the Ultra Scoring Kings the year before that. Guys, if you're listening to this and you just want to check out what you consider cards that you never even knew were out there, that's like a purplish foil background with lightning strikes behind it. It's a really cool Michael Jordan card, which is also impossible to find in high grade because of just the chipping. There are some cool cards made in the 90s, just like there are some cool cards made now. So yeah, I hope that answers. Yeah, I could have went a million different ways. My kids would tell you that if there was a card that describes me, it's any Pokemon set that has the Whale Lord card in it because I'm the Whale Lord, or Snorlax maybe. I'm Snorlax. So
no. That's Joe Biden. Come on now.
Hey, no politics.
DJ Anthony, what's up, brother? Thank you for the follow. New follower here, I believe. Nice to have you here, DJ Anthony. Hold 2020 NFL. Hold 2020 NFL Prism retail for long term, unopened, or rip it all? It's a great question, I think.
So I think if you're planning on holding, I would try to hold like a hobby box that's got a guarantee of an autograph and a whole bunch of prisms and a whole bunch of silvers and that kind of stuff, right? So I've warmed up to the idea of holding a product, especially something like 2020 Prism Football that has the quarterback class. I know Burrow is hurt, and Tua, who knows what Tua is going to be, but Herbert's in it as well. It's got a quarterback class that reminds you of other great quarterback classes. You think at least one of those guys is going to turn into one of those generational type QBs. But if I am 10 years from now thinking I'm going to look for Justin Herbert or I'm going to look for sealed product, I'm looking for a hobby box that's going to guarantee me X number of silvers and an auto that I know if I'm opening it up, I definitely have a shot of pulling a Herbert silver or a Herbert numbered card or a Herbert autograph. Whereas a retail box does not have any of those guarantees. You're talking about like a blaster or something like that, right? They it's not what I would be looking to hold for long-term appreciation. It's not. So I hope that answers it. When I think of like retail blasters, I open every one of them, but I open everything. So that's the different story, I guess. Blasters are fun.
I do think this class is very strong. This quarterback class, the wide receiver class, there's some really, 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 really good potential here. I think we just got one or two more. I'll double check. PSA 10 grader. Would you rather have 3 PSA 9s or 1 PSA 10?
Depends on the card.
Tatum.
Depends on the card.
Luka Tatum.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, I'll give you one example. My favorite Pokemon card, Chansey, right? I'd much rather have a 10 than 3 9s because it's clearly impossible to find in a 10 because it's 46. Same thing would apply for almost any vintage card, believe it or not. You gave me that. We talked about this, the 1980, the scoring leaders, Magic, Bird, and Julius Erving. There are 600 9s and not that many 10s. I'd much rather have a 10 of that than a bunch of 9s. Michael Jordan. I think the PSA 9,
modern?
But modern, it also depends, right? I mean, like you have to look at the card pricing, right? So like we'll just talk about Trey, right? That was one of the names he gave, right? So what's a PSA 9 Trey Prism base sell for? 175, 180,
Right.
but the 10 is $700. So obviously, given that, I'd much rather have 1 10 than 3 9s. There are other cards out there that's not the case for. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. But there are some cards where, I'd have multiple 9s instead of 10s, but it might be 4 instead of 3. So there's an easy way to answer that. It's very card specific, and I'm all about the math. So I would go right to 130 points. I'd go to eBay sales, and I'd say how much is a 9 selling for, and how much is a 10 selling for. And if I could get more for 3 9s than I could get for 110, I'd take the 3 9s.
Cards to the Max asks, what would you rather have long term of a player you're bullish on? A high end rookie parallel or a rookie autograph?
So this is kind of where the hobby is heading, right? And by rookie autograph, I would probably lean towards an RPA because that's what people are looking at now also. Yeah, I mean, I think you can't go wrong with either one of them, right? If the question extended to a third option, which is would I rather have multiple Prism PSA 10 bases of the guy as opposed to a blue numbered version as opposed to a rookie autograph, I take out the multiple prisms, multiple bases, right? Because obviously anybody can grab those, even though you have a lot of them. It's personal preference, right? Do you like autographs? Are you an autograph person? As opposed to a numbered parallel of a rookie. I would check the pop report on it. If it's a limited enough rookie auto, then yeah, fine. I'd probably go with the auto. But one thing, it's funny because I talk a lot.
If you ask Rips, he'd probably say both.
Well, yeah, he would say both, but he has both. But you know what? I talk a lot, but I also listen. One of the things you said, I think it was during our Rips episode yesterday, but you've said it a bunch of times, that it resonated with me. It's the connection to it, right? You were talking about the Kobe ticket, right? You're talking about autographed cards, right? And that connection to the player. And if you're a fan of Luka and you'd rather have that personal connection, the fact that that his mom signed that card for you, that he signed that card for you, right? Then that's a little additional nugget that's right there, right? That's a little, bonus, right? You might want to have
leave the mothers out of this.
So, but you understand what I'm saying. Some people will put a premium on the autograph rather than just a numbered or limited parallel that the guy's never touched. He's never seen, right? That autograph, if assuming it's an on-the-card autograph, is something that player has held. You know what I mean? That player, they touch that card, they sign that card, it's their name on the card, which adds another level of connection with that player. So
I will say it's really a curious question. It makes me think a lot because it couldn't be more polar opposite, right? On like the feel, like you have like this it feels like a piece of artwork, like really nice RPAs they're beautiful cards. So it's a great question. I truthfully don't know what I'd rather have, Cage. I'd really like this question. We have 2 more left. One more.
I can only answer it from my PC. I don't have too many autos. So obviously,
you're not an auto guy.
My cards have trended towards buying the rookie card, no autos. But, I might have to change that. But go ahead, 2 more.
Drake, when investing in vintage all-time greats, Wilt, Russell, Kareem, Jim Brown, Walter Payton, is there a minimum grade to target or is highest grade you can get okay? Even a PSA 1 or 2, depending on the budget.
There's no cookie cutter response to this because everybody's budget is going to be different. But I will tell you, it's one of those, we're biased, buy the card, not the slab, right? I always say the same thing, which is if I could have a shirt on this, it would be buy the best card in the best grade that your budget could afford, right? So that if you're talking about, you were talking about vintage, right? Or, if you're in the market for a Hank Aaron rookie card, you say, I have $2,000. You go and you look at what the best grade card for that $2,000 you can buy is, and that's what you buy. So there's no minimum, and also you got to keep in mind it depends on the card you're talking about. Some of these cards, there are no high grade cards. I recently sold the Pele rookie card in PSA 2, and you're like, oh, PSA 2, but I think there were like 46 total copies of the card in any grade that existed. Forget about 10s. I don't think there were any 10s. It might be 1/9. So, a card like that, if you're talking about a vintage card, you're talking about, you got to look at the overall pop because, if there are only 1 or 2 10s, a few 9s, a few 8s, and some 6s, your 3 becomes that much more valuable because it's not a card where you need to have an 8 because there's 1,000 8s, So really is a very card specific and a budget specific question. But ultimately, I will tell you there is no cutoff. There are PSA ones that are worth millions of dollars. I mean, talk to Mr. Honus Wagner.
I was gonna say, I think PSA ones are so fascinating. The variance on actually what a PSA one is kind of cool. If you ever like go and want to have some fun, right? Like a PSA one can be like all scratched up the surface, or there's like trimmed around the edges. PSA ones are a trip, man. 2 last questions came in while we were talking. Do you have time, Cage?
Yeah, go for
it. In terms of selling, Gem Mint. In terms of selling, thoughts on listing cards at 99-cent auctions?
Okay. So when I sell for myself, I put everything at least 5 days, and I start everything at 99 cents. I want to get enough eyeballs on it, and I let the market determine what the price is. So if it's an auction, I always sell at 99 cents. First of all, because they're usually free. You sell a card at more than that, you start something off higher, they're actually going to charge you just to list the auction, so you're already cutting into your money by doing it for a price higher than that. So 99 cents auctions usually are free because they know the card's going to sell. So that's number one. But yeah, I mean, listen, chances are you're selling a card that's worth more than 99 cents anyway, and the market will tell you what it's worth. So I have no fear with starting auctions off at 99 cents. None at all.
Ryan Balthazar. I PC Kirby Puckett and was looking at sending in my 1992 American Sports Monthly blue foil numbered to PSA. Check in on the pop report. It says no longer graded. What's up with that?
Wow. So that happens from time to time, right? I mean, I don't know that specific card, what the reasons are. What I would tell you immediately to do is if you're planning on having it graded by PSA, call PSA and find out why. Or better yet, because this is a new change this year, you can write them. Their customer service portal will tell you whether or not they'll grade a card. So write them an email, and they usually get back within 24 or 48 hours to it. I did this myself to a sticker I wanted to try to get graded, but it's not licensed, so they said I couldn't grade it. But you send them an email, tell them the card name, and send them some pictures of the card and say, I want to get this card graded. Will you grade it? And they will write back to you and tell you why it's not graded. More often than not, it's because of a prevalence of fakes. And it's a card that's not made by one of the major manufacturers. It sounds like this one isn't. So that there's no safeguards and a way for them to tell between the forgeries and the originals. Maybe they were made on a traditional printing press or something like that, and it's just a card that could be copied too often, and that PSA does not have the ability right now to tell whether it's a fake or not. I don't know if that's the case for this particular card, but I know that has been a reason given as to why they can't authenticate certain other cards in the past that they did authenticate. So send them an email, send them a copy of the card, send a picture of the card, and see whether or not they'll grade it. And then if they won't, ask them why, and they'll let you know. And then the flip side to that is, while people don't realize this anymore, there are 2 other grading companies, 3 other grading companies. So if PSA doesn't grade it and you really want to get it into a slab, you can always try BGS, SGC, or what is the other one? CGC now? Is that what it's called?
Ian's Card Network.
Yeah, Ian's Card. My son will grade it for you.
Last question, Cage.
Yep.
Adam McNanny asks, McNaney or McNanny? Adam, you got to let me know if I pronounce that right. I'm sorry if I butchered
McNanamy.
It. Does Andrew look like Zoe Deschanel? Inquiring minds want to know.
So listen, I hope Lameme James, because I'm a huge fan of his account and the stuff that he puts out there. I hope he's listening to this. But does Andrew look like Zoe Deschanel? He does today. He definitely does today. And listen, I think of Zoe Deschanel, and I think of the holiday favorite Elf, because she is the ingenue in that movie. She is the female lead to
you pronounced that unbelievably.
Will Ferrell, right? So the
ingenue.
Yeah, she's the ingenue, the female lead, right? So she is the ingenue of that movie. But it's perfect because if you are Zoe Deschanel, she was instrumental in that movie to bringing Christmas spirit and taking care of the oversized, immature male lead. She was a great partner to him, that oversized, immature male lead. So is he Zoe Deschanel? To me, every day, because I am that oversized, immature male lead, and he is a great partner for me. So yes, there you go. I hope that answers your question. You got any other ones?
No, I love you guys, man. This is so much fun.
Listen, if you don't know what we're talking about there, take a look. We posted it on our story. It is a repost of a picture put out there by Lemium James. Andrew has put up some pictures recently of himself, pondering life's great mysteries. I call them toilet photos. But no, he's actually like looking out at his great, view. And today's got the Lemium treatment. And, you have to consider that flattery. You have to consider it the highest form of flattery, right? Because if he didn't give a shit about you, you wouldn't be posterized by the great Lemium James. So we love it. Do me next.
Do me next. Love you guys. Thank you for everything. Thank you for all submitting all your questions. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your comments. We're doing a little fun giveaway with Trace McSorley. We are Penn State, little Nittany Lion guy here. It's a beautiful card. It's a beautiful card. Just doing a fun little giveaway. Who's going to start this Sunday? Lamar, RG3, or Trace? Put it in your story, share it with some friends, tag a friend, and we're going to pick a giveaway, most likely without a randomizer this time, on Sunday before the games kick off.
So it is a cool Purple Stars auto out of 50 of Trace McSorley that I completely forgot that I had. So I figure, might as well give it away.
Can I ask
guys.
you one last question that came to mind? This is going to be a cool one, I think.
I can't wait.
So there's these Panini Contender autos, right?
Uh-huh.
And if you look, Panini Contender autos for basketball actually sell for less than football.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, Mahomes.
That's the answer. The answer is Tom Brady.
Can you elaborate?
So your question to me is, why is it that they have much more traction in football than in basketball? Why does football one sell better than basketball? And it goes back to what we were talking about with 1-1 being a steaming turd, and things having longevity, and things having patents, and things having a track record. There's the right phraseology for it, right? So you have to go out and buy the best LeBron card out there right now. And you're starting a mutual fund because you're a Silicon Valley guy out in California. What are you buying?
I would never live in California. I would only rent, by the way.
You're living in Mexico.
Insane.
Dude, derailing the question. You buy a LeBron RPA, you buy the Exquisite, you buy the card that was bought. It's $1 million card, right? That is the card. That is the LeBron auto card that people want to buy.
Is there even a Panini Contenders auto of LeBron?
Nope. But there is one of Tom Brady, and you want to buy Tom Brady's top auto, that is the card. And that matters in collectors' eyes today. Go ahead.
What about like a Luka Contenders auto then? Is that?
No.
But they're out there.
Correct. But while it's a great card, people don't say, I want to get the Luka Contenders auto because there is a LeBron Contenders auto, and I'm comparing those two. People will look, believe it or not, at the Goodwin cards from 18, the Upper Deck Goodwin cards that have Exquisite autos in them, and pay a ton for the Luka, even though it's an art. Have you ever seen that card? You ever seen the Luka? He's not wearing his jersey. It's not like a fully licensed card, but take a look at it. Put up in eBay, Luka Exquisite RPA, and see how much these things are selling for, right? Even though it's not go ahead.
But the 2000 playoff Contenders auto isn't a Panini product.
It doesn't matter.
This is the beauty of the hobby. There is so much nuance, guys. We're actually exploring this with you.
Type in 2019 Upper Deck Exquisite Collection Autograph Rookie Auto, and you'll see RPAs. There's a BGS 9.5. Someone's asking $50,000 on it, and it's a similar card to the LeBron. It looks exactly the same, right? It's part of the Exquisite collection of the 03 Rookie Tribute, right? It's Luka. He's wearing one of his, it looks like it's in Europe even. I mean, it's not a Dallas jersey. This one says Pop 104, $50,000 the rest. Now that's just what's being asked. But the reason
that's the draft picks one, right? Where he's not in the.
No, it's not a draft. I'm not talking about the Contender one. I'm talking about an Exquisite one. So I'm talking about the same card for Luka that would be the comparable one for LeBron, right? So because of the LeBron being out there, people say, oh, well, I see that LeBron card selling for so much money. I want to get that same card for Luka, right? So there's no Topps Chrome. There's Prism Silver. The auto is Exquisite. People look at that. There is no Contenders auto of anyone spectacular. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? Luka's National Treasure RPA sells for $3 million one day. In 10, 20 years, the next guy, people are going to want the National Treasures or the Flawless or whatever is selling for so much money. It's the same exact thing with football, right? People say, all right, I'm a Mahomes collector. What is the most expensive auto of Brady? And they see the Contenders ticket auto. So they buy that one for Mahomes. That's all it's about. 100%.
There you guys have it. That's another Coffee with Cage. We'll be back at it tomorrow. And then Sunday we have the NFL preview, week 13. We love you guys. We appreciate everything you guys do to support us, to give us comments and feedback. Have an amazing weekend.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. And if you haven't already done it, what do we get? A couple dozen messages a day for people telling us they want to join our Instagram groups. So we still have those. If you want to join an Instagram group, just send us a message and let us know. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lukas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.